More moves are coming for the New York Rangers as multiple insiders have reported that Chris Drury's roster shakeup is far from over, and we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet. We're going to get into that and who could be making their way out of New York. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest, but before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, another disappointing loss to the Florida Panthers. The New York Rangers are now last in the Metropolitan Division. And despite everything that's been going on, I thought the special teams was cleaned up. I thought the 5-on-5 play wasn't that bad. I thought there was actually some effort in their game last night. But nonetheless, you lose to the Florida Panthers, a team who, coming into this game, shut out and also losing two in a row. So, not great, obviously. And I thought Igor Shesterkin, there was a lot of high danger scoring chances. I thought in the third period, when you're only down by 1 goal, Igor Shesterkin made some big saves. So there is some silver linings to this, I guess, in that game. If you want to take away some positives, there were some things there. But again, the fact of the matter is you lost. But they need to get back on track. And I think Chris Drury has a plan to try and get back on track, and that is by making more moves, because it sounds like he is far from done his roster shakeup, and it involves moving some older players out and maybe some younger talent in. We'll get into it in this episode. Elliotte Friedman, on his latest episode of the 32 Thoughts podcast, alluded to, and again, he was talking about the Larry Brooks article that came out that, the New York Rangers have quit on management, and he basically said that, he was wondering if Chris Drury could start playing hardball with Mika Zibanejad. Basically the same thing he did with Jacob Trouba, the same thing he did with Barclay Goodrow, waive your no trade clause, and we're going to get to that in just a bit in this video about him potentially waiving his no trade clause and where to. But basically, waive your no trade clause, or we're going to put you, we're going to figure something out here. You're not going to play, basically, he's saying that he's wondering now if the next step is Zibanejad gone. And we're going to get into Kreider as well, because his name's been floated out there too. But I think Chris Kreider is actually less likely to get traded now. And I think that they've shifted their focus big time to Mika Zibanejad. And this is not a new thing, as Phil points out here. This is the first time that Friedman has hinted at this. There's also a time in mid-December when things were really starting to take a turn downward. That he also mentioned the same thing, that Chris Drury could start, doing the same thing that he did with, obviously, Jacob Trouba, Barclay Goodrow, just to name a few. But I thought that was very interesting. And Elliotte Friedman goes into more detail about what's happening with the New York Rangers in, obviously, another podcast. And breaking it down, Elliotte Friedman says that the players have quit on the Rangers organization, and it's just a matter of time before players start moving. And Drury, and this is from Elliotte Friedman, he believes that Chris Drury, and I guess he has insider info, maybe it's from ownership, who knows, but Drury and Laviolette's jobs are safe. And I brought this up in my video yesterday, that I believe that the New York Rangers, some of these players want to be New York Rangers, but under their terms. And I don't think that flies in this business, in this sport. The coach and the GM are not going anywhere. Now, if you agree with that or not, the fact of the matter is they may not be going anywhere. And I think this team needs a little bit of stability, right? This core has seen 3 coaches. They haven't been able to get it done. They've gone far in the playoffs, yes, but they haven't been able to get it done. So they could use some stability. And I think sometimes you need to put your foot down in the way that, we're not going to fire another coach for you guys just to miss the playoffs or just to get eliminated in round 2. We're not going to do that here. So they're going to stop giving the players exactly what they want. So again, I think that they want to be New York Rangers, but under their terms, and I don't think that's going to fly anymore. Now, again, say what you want about Chris Drury and the job that he's done. It sounds like he's going to be sticking around and going to see through the next couple moves and possibly the season. So we'll see how that shakes out, but it sounds like there's absolutely more moves coming. I think he's going to start playing hardball with everybody to completely retool this team, and it's going to be interesting how this shakes out, because again, Mika Zibanejad has a no movement clause. Now, this is from David Pagnotta, which I thought was very interesting. This came out right after Elliotte Friedman with his reports in the podcast. Pagnotta reported on Monday that Zibanejad would be open to waiving his no movement clause for the right environment. It is unclear, however, if the New York Rangers and Zibanejad have discussed which teams he would accept a move to, but that conversation could come if Drury finds the right fit. So it's looking more likely to me that Zibanejad is actually the next guy out of New York, and they're going to find a way to get it done. They're probably going to sit down, have a conversation about it. Hey, listen, we'll send you to wherever you want to go, but you're going to have to move your no trade clause. or things could get ugly here. And we've seen it before with two players. Things can get ugly. So I think they're going to try and find him a spot that he would enjoy going to, because listen, it's in his contract. He has the right to do this. I know a lot of people don't like it, but again, it's a right in his contract. He can deny the trade if he wants, but I think that they're going to have that conversation now, and I think that's the next order of business. I wonder if we actually don't see any more dominoes fall until Zibanejad is moved at this point, because again, Kreider makes a little bit less than him. I think Kreider, when healthy, we'll get into that in a second, has more use at this point in his career. And for $8 million, Zibanejad, or over $8 million, I should say, Zibanejad might be holding this team back from retooling on the fly. So I think that's very interesting. Zibanejad could be on his way out. He could be the next guy. And Zibanejad's play this season has been not great, right? Like, we'll take a look at his stats. It has not been great whatsoever, right? And he's entering his 32-year-old season. Like, he's going to be 32, 33 next season. He's signed till 2030. It's not ideal, right? Like, it's not looking good. He only has 6 goals this season. He has 21 points in 36 games. Simply not good enough for the money that he's making and what we know him to be in the past. I also don't like to look into plus minus, but when your plus minus is so egregious, it does tell a bit of a story. So he's been horrible 5-on-5, really in all situations this year. I mean, he hasn't been great on the power play either, and he logs a lot of ice time still. He still gets a lot of ice time. So he has not been great this season. And I mean, it's a huge talking point. Like, it looks like they have to move off of him if they're going to find success. They got to move another piece, a cheaper piece in place of him, and try and retool the team. And I mean, fans are there's a lot of fan reaction online right now. A lot of people are like, why is this team responding this way to, their friends being traded? Their friends at that point in their career weren't adding to the team. Gaudreau is a great player, and I think that he would have great use for the New York Rangers still, but the contract just wouldn't work with the money that they have to allocate to some of the younger guys going forward next year, like Lafreniere. And like at the time, what they were thinking was Keandre Miller. It doesn't look like that's too likely anymore. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on is the reason I think Mika Zibanejad, and this is a great point from Arthur Staple, Zibanejad is the next man out, is because it's going to be a little bit difficult to trade Chris Kreider at this point, because it was very evident last night that he doesn't look like himself. And he was complaining. I shouldn't say complaining. I'll take that back. But he was saying earlier in the season that he was dealing with back issues, right? And we know for hockey players, the back issues, they could be possibly the worst thing that you can deal with. So he has been dealing with that all season long. Obviously, he had a few games off there earlier this season because of that. Then he was a healthy scratch recently before Christmas. I think that had more to do with his play than anything else. But again, it doesn't look like he's healthy. I think that's going to affect his trade value, or if teams actually want him, because he's got to get healthy. And again, he's just not playing to the level that we know him to play. And I wonder if it's because of his back and his health. I think that's very interesting. It's something to keep in mind. And some reaction from the players, it's extremely frustrating, says Adam Fox. They're giving a lot of basic plain quotes that fans know already, right? The last couple of games, like, we know it's frustrating. You guys just have to get it together. And I feel like maybe it's a move, right? And you can pause this and read it if you want. Peter Laviolette with some praise for Philip Hedl as well. He's been playing great, but I think that it is probably a move at this point that needs to be made. Retool on the fly, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. At this point, but I think some of the older guys have to be moved out, because it is simply not working. And we knew it was eventually going to get to this point. I didn't think it was going to get to this point this quickly and this season. So pretty shocking stuff how this season has unfolded. And I think it's a move coming up soon, because again, the holiday trade freeze is done. You can make moves. I'm sure they're working on something. I think Zibanejad is the next guy that they're going to try and push potentially. And if that doesn't work out, they'll probably shift their focus to Kreider. But I think it's very interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think of Mika Zibanejad being the next man out of New York. And also let me know what you think about Peter Laviolette and Chris Drury seemingly keeping their jobs. I kind of like it on the side of Peter Laviolette. Not too sure about Chris Drury because of some of the moves he's made. But at the same time, I don't know if any of this is actually Peter Laviolette's fault. So let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.